Hello, and welcome to the Mindful Fit Pro podcast, the fitness professional's favorite spot for learning about all things mindfulness, mental wellness, and the latest in psychological research. I'm your host, Shelly, and in today's episode, we will be defining mindfulness. So what exactly is mindfulness anyways? That's the question we'll be exploring in today's episode. There is so much we can talk about here, but let's start with one of the most well-known definitions of mindfulness. According to Jon Kabat-Zinn, mindfulness is the awareness that arises through paying attention on purpose in the present moment, non-judgmentally. There's a lot to break down there, and anytime I teach a mindfulness course, I break this definition down into 3 different parts. Mindfulness is paying attention on purpose, so you have intention there. Mindfulness is about paying attention to what? The present moment. And, of course, there's this theme of compassion or non-judgment that overlays all of it. The origins of mindfulness date back over 2,000 years ago with its roots in Buddhist tradition. As a part of the Buddhist Eightfold Path, mindfulness is a way to free oneself from stress and suffering. Not because they stop existing altogether, but because mindfulness helps us to recognize stress and suffering will always be present. And we're just going to make ourselves go silly and miserable if we pretend otherwise. Jon Kabat-Zinn is perhaps one of the most well-known mindfulness researchers due to his creation of the 8-week mindfulness-based stress reduction program. Kabat-Zinn started out as a molecular biologist interested in the effects that mindfulness has on the body's stress response. His development of a standardized 8-week mindfulness training program all the way back in 1979 was just the start of an entire field of research on mindfulness. And today, a quick search of the word mindfulness on Google Scholar returns over 800,000 articles and books. Nowadays, you might hear the term mindfulness tossed around like it's this cure-all, end-all to any ailment or any of life's troubles. You'll hear mindfulness in the same breath as mindset coaching and stress reduction, and cue toxic positivity and all of its glory. But the reality is, mindfulness isn't just about the positive. It's about acknowledging whatever is happening in the present moment, whether we label that as good or bad or neutral. It's about paying attention to what is going on right now and not replaying the things that happened in the past or worrying about what's yet to come. I know, way easier said than done. It's about understanding ourselves, our bodies, our minds, and our spirit. And it takes effort. That's why we call it a practice. You're listening to the Mindful Fit Pro podcast, and I hope you're taking a moment to soak it all in. If you're inspired by today's episode, check out www.mindfulfitpro.com to see additional workshops and courses that I offer. And if today's content resonated with you and you think other instructors or personal trainers would benefit from listening too, please share the Mindful Fit Pro podcast with your friends and team. Now let's get back to the episode. Sometimes it's easier to think of times we are being mindless rather than mindful. Driving and arriving at your destination, but not remembering the trip that it took to get there. Maybe even thinking, did I stop at that last stop sign? Or doing the dishes while you replay a conversation that you had with your coworker earlier in the day. For us as instructors, mindlessness comes into play when we are teaching maybe a routine that we are very familiar with. We know it by heart. We're cueing on autopilot, maybe avoiding eye contact with the students in front of us, while our minds are busy thinking about the other things that are on our plate. Mindless is kind of a harsh term to use here. After all, it's not your mind's fault. Your brain spends so much time in the past and future because it's trying to be helpful. Evolution has developed our brain to be great problem solvers and planners. Unfortunately, it sometimes can get stuck in thinking it needs to be working for us all the time, and it forgets how much there is to enjoy in the present moment. We can practice a mindfulness technique together today so you can experience it for yourself. Let's take a moment to try out a bit of mindfulness for ourselves. You can do this exercise without any special equipment, anywhere, and at any time. I'll give you a moment to get comfortable if you'd like to adjust your seat or perhaps lay down. Make sure you pick a spot where you can relax, but remain alert. Take a moment to settle in and get situated with your surroundings. You're welcome to close your eyes if that feels good, but it's okay to keep them open as well. If you do keep them open, perhaps you look around and take note of all the sights around you. Eventually, let your gaze fall gently down, or perhaps close your eyes. Now direct your attention to your breath. Start by taking a few breaths in and out through the nose or the mouth, your choice. Settling in and finding a natural rhythm to your breath. Bring your attention to the points of contact you have with the ground or floor, perhaps the feet, the legs, or your seat. Feel the body supported by these points of contact. Take note of your posture. Sitting up so that the column of your spine feels long and supported, or perhaps lengthening the back as you rest on the surface beneath you. In this moment, what physical sensations can you feel? A lightness in the toes, coolness in the tips of the fingers, the tickle of a stray hair, or perhaps the texture of your clothing. Take a moment to explore all the physical sensations present in the body, noticing any new sensations with each breath. Perhaps the coolness of the inhale and the warmth of your exhale. Mindfulness is the ability to focus on being intently aware of what you're sensing and feeling in the present moment, without the need for any interpretation or judgment. It doesn't need to be something that we practice for long periods of time, and it doesn't need to be complicated. Simply becoming aware of the senses, like the sense of touch, is an act of mindfulness. You can continue with this exercise for as long as you'd like, perhaps hitting pause on this recording, or maybe revisiting it later on. You're listening to the Mindful Fit Pro podcast, and I hope you enjoyed practicing a little bit of mindfulness with me. Now let's get back to today's episode. In that exercise, we used the sensation of touch to anchor us to the present moment. You can use any of the 5 senses to ground you in the present as a sort of tether whenever you notice the mind being pulled into the past or the future. As you sat, scanning the body for sensations of lightness or heaviness, warmth or coolness, no doubt you had thoughts that were bubbling up to the surface of your awareness. And this is totally normal. In fact, it's expected. Just because it happens does not mean you are doing anything wrong. And in fact, the very awareness of your mind nudging you towards the future or the past means that you were practicing awareness. Depending on the day, you might have a lot of thoughts competing for your attention, and some days less. So what exactly does mindfulness mean in relation to your fitness coaching or your instruction of group classes? Think about the cues I gave in this short mindfulness exercise. Settle into the breath, explore the sensation of touch. Simple enough, but I'm willing to bet you found yourself distracted at one point or another. Maybe not by other thoughts, but perhaps by other senses, maybe other sounds that were present in your surroundings. Maybe you found yourself focusing so intently on the areas of the body that felt sore or restless, and then began to think about how long it's been since you last stretched or moved around a bit. Our students experience these same distractions. While we cue them through their workout, chances are their mind is being pulled in 100 other directions. And who knows which thought trails they're following while they're trying to listen to us. We'll discuss how mindfulness relates to your teaching and explore more exercises together in upcoming Mindful Fit Pro podcast episodes. But in the meantime, if the curiosity bug has bit you, I created the Essential Guide to Mindfulness for Fitness Professionals ebook. I know, what a mouthful of a name. You can get your own copy of this free ebook linked below in the show notes of this episode. In this ebook, you'll get real-life examples of how something as simple as mindfulness can help your clients reach their goals, and you'll get 5 ready-to-use techniques that you can incorporate into your programming. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. I hope you know what an awesome instructor you are and a kick-ass coach. You're doing great, and I believe in you. Until the next episode, I hope you have fun teaching. Thank you for listening to the Mindful Fit Pro podcast. It would mean the world to me if you liked this episode and subscribed. You can follow me on social media at Mindful Fit Pro to hear about any upcoming episodes or courses.